Goblin Slayer, Another Adventure Nightmare Feast is officially set to launch onto the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation consoles, and on PC on February 29th of next year. And today I'm going to go over essentially the latest details that we have, where the developers of Bushiroad Games not only provided us with the latest brand new trailer, but also provided with some brand new feature reveals, brand new changes that are going to be added into the game, a couple of brand new added characters that we're going to be talking about, and more importantly, the confirmation that the Japanese release on February 29th of next year will actually have full English support as well. So for players who had been asking me in the comments when I covered this game in my two previous videos, asking me when is it set to release here in the Western world for English players, well, essentially the Japanese version is going to have full-on English support. And we do have confirmation that there will be a physical version released in Japan as well, so you may be able to opt in and choose to import the game if you so desire. However, this developer does seem to have a pretty good track record of releasing their games here in the West, so presumably a digital release will be made available sometime around the summer, most likely, or at the very least in the spring of 2024, and maybe even alongside that a physical release can come soon after. Of course, these are just speculations on my part. We don't have any confirmation of a physical release in the West, but at the very least we now know that there will be an English release nonetheless. But alongside those news, we also have confirmations that a couple of unique character skills will become available for any one of those characters that you end up recruiting to your party, and that has also been something of a talking point as of recently, especially in the comment sections in my previous videos covering this game, where players tend to often ask me, well, how come Goblin Slayer and his actual team from the anime aren't the ones who are the main protagonists? And for whatever reason, essentially the developers decided to say that they are going to expand the game world. This game is being created by some of the original creators of the actual animated and manga series as well. So they are essentially bringing over their expertise. Kumogiru, I believe, is the creator of the series. He's working on concept arts for this game, and specifically also the story as well. And we ended up getting confirmation that you're essentially in full control of another team. You're not in full control of Goblin Slayer's team, but instead you're controlling the Guildmaster's Blood Princess Squire's team. Essentially much more powerful characters you're going to be in full control of, and they're essentially plowing through the game world, progressing alongside it, trying to take down the big villains, and they just happen to come across the Goblin Slayer. One of the things that I found very interesting, even when I was originally researching the reveal of this game a few months back, was the fact that the Goblin Slayer and his original team were not going to be the main protagonists, but instead these new characters are being introduced to be the main protagonist Goblin Slayer teams from the anime shows and all the other characters that come alongside that. The priestess, the high elf, the dwarf shaman, lizard priest, and all of them, they will be showcased, of course, in the game as playable characters and even supported characters, but they're not necessarily going to be the main protagonists. The Guildmaster and the Blood Princess are. And for those who may not necessarily know, this is essentially a 3D strategy RPG pixel art game. If you know anything like Fire Emblem, for example, you already kind of know what to expect here. A beautiful pixel art, a lot of awesome looking moves, and more importantly, of course, plenty of enemies for you to dispose of, since you're essentially progressing through the actual game world. Goblin Slayer kind of focuses on one very specific area of the actual game's existence, of the like world's existence, but this group actually is going to be taking down many multiple enemies in many multiple areas, so they don't necessarily have the limitations that the original Goblin Slayer team has. Plenty of gameplay has been showcased for each one of the main four protagonists of the game. Once again, the Guildmaster, the Blood Princess, the Squire, the Polar Bear Priest, and a couple of supporters as well named Conan and Lady of Principality. So ultimately, this is going to be the main team you're going to be focusing on. One of the things that you do get to see in the trailer as it role plays in the background is, of course, new skills and new abilities. Now, of course, you have plenty of chat and discussions happening in between as you get more friendly with characters. You can essentially raise your friendship level in the same way that Persona games do that, or at the very least introduce that type of mechanic. Whether friendlier you become with certain characters, the more powerful they become, the better synergies that you have, and the more damage they can ultimately do. More abilities, more skills, more spell effects, all those goodies become unlockable through those means. More importantly though, they also showcase that you can craft your very own armor based on some of the drops that the enemies have. So for example, if your enemy ends up dropping a sword and you just happen to have the same sword, well, you essentially duplicate those two swords and you mix them into a brand new one. That is the system that they're going to be introducing. You don't break them down, you just simply merge two together to become a more powerful sword. So essentially, there will be tiered layers of items that you're going to be crafting, whether it is armor pieces, whether it is rings, pendants, cloaks, headpieces, weapons, etc. Plenty of them. You'll just simply need to be able to get a second copy of it, craft a more powerful version as you mix those two up, and you should be ready to go. At the same time, in the trailer, they also confirm that you're going to be able to overlay traps in the game's world, and of course, summon different characters are going to have different skills. So, for example, some characters may be dropping pit stop, like a pit hole in the ground, where essentially characters fall through the ground and they may be stuck there for a little bit. Other characters will drop in traps, so they can essentially just do damage. Other characters can put poison traps and essentially poison an enemy. Different varieties for different characters. You'll be able to mix and match however it is that you want to be able to do that. There's also a brand new system with skills where they can essentially become more powerful as you roll the dice. So they are going to have these like dice, basically like royal dice, that are going to make decisions based upon how powerful your skills might end up being, especially against weaker enemies based on some of those rolls. You certainly want to take advantage of that, because they do specifically mention that in each and every single world map you are going to be exploring with enemies spawned within. You're going to have a notorious creature there, and you actually get to see some of those towards the back end of the very short trailer that they shared with us, where you do get to see some creatures kind of like glowing a little bit depending on like where they're standing, and you're going to be able to see that those enemies have significantly higher health. Presumably those are the notorious monsters you want to keep your eyes peeled for, because every other monster is most likely going to be a little bit of a pushover, but those notorious ones, who are not necessarily the bosses, but just another significant difficulty engagement that you're going to have out on the field, you should be able to engage with them however it is that you see accordingly, based on the team that you seem to have put together. Certainly, Goblin Slayer, Another Adventure's Nightmare Feast is looking to be a relatively fantastic game, set to release once again February 29th of next year on PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and PC Steam. For me personally, I'm very excited to see what this game is going to be put together, essentially when it comes to the story, because a lot of players who are enjoying the anime certainly want to be able to see some of the gruesomeness and maybe even some of the carnage that you do get to see in the animated series make their way into the game. So we're just going to have to wait and see how it is that they choose to approach that. But if you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.